What's going on, guys, and welcome to the ATH Med Prep MCAT Success course. In this course, we are going to be discussing everything you need to know about the MCAT, the best way to study the various topics, and the must-know test-taking strategies that will help you get that dream score. In the first module, the MCAT Basics, there will be 3 lessons: understanding the MCAT, computer-based test-taking skills, and setting your target score. So without further ado, let's jump right into Lesson 1. So as you can see, there are 4 sections: the chemical and physical foundations of biological systems, also known as Chem Phys, critical analysis and reasoning skills, which is known as CARS, biological and biochemical foundations of living systems, which is Bio-Biochem, and psychological, social, and biological foundations of behavior, which is known as Psych-Soc. Now, if you notice, in 3 out of the 4 sections, you have the word biological in, and that's because the new MCAT, the 2015 version, really wants to take all the concepts you've learned as a pre-med and apply it within the biological context. So you'll be seeing a lot of questions, for example, in Chem Phys, when you might be doing something with physics and lenses, they'll have a passage about the eye. And these are the types of things that you'll be seeing, so that everything you learn is applicable to what you will eventually need as a future physician. Alright, so a quick exam breakdown. If you take a look at the 3 science sections, which is going to be your Chem Phys, the Bio-Biochem, and Psych-Soc, you'll notice that they all have pretty much the same information, or the exact same information. So they have 59 questions in each of those sections. There's going to be 10 passages, and a majority of the questions are going to be based off of those passages. But then you also have 15 discrete questions, which are essentially standalone questions that are testing your content knowledge in those areas and are not requiring you to use a passage and apply that information to the question. And you're going to have 95 minutes for each of those sections, and we'll go into timing strategy a little bit later on in this course. And then lastly, you have the CAR section, which is in the second row, and there's going to be 53 questions for the CARs. There's going to be 9 passages, and there's going to be 0 discrete questions. Obviously, because CARs is the critical reading section, you have to have a passage for all of your questions. So the CAR section is 90 minutes, which means it works out to you have about 10 minutes per passage. And again, we will be going over the timing strategy for CARs, which is a little bit different for the science sections later on in the specific modules that relate to each of the MCAT sections. So the AMC has released 4 skills for the science section that they want pre-med students to work on mastering in order to do well on the MCAT. We're going to go over these 4 skills now because it's really important to understand exactly what they're going to be testing you on and the different types of questions that you can see based on these skills. So the first skill is knowledge of scientific concepts and principles. Essentially, this is testing your content. If you have a skill 1 question, these are going to be the most straightforward, maybe 1 or 2-step questions where you have to recall a formula, plug in the variables, you'll get to an answer. They won't always be that simple, but this is essentially what we're talking about when we talk about skill 1. It's just understanding if you have the basic science knowledge that you need to acquire as a pre-med student. Then skill 2 is scientific reasoning and problem solving. So for these types of questions, we're taking it that extra step. And essentially what the AMC wants you to be able to do is to take information and synthesize that information in combination with the content that you already have been studying for the past months, and bring that together so that you can answer a question that they are presenting you with. And before we move on to skill 3 and skill 4, I just wanted to mention that 80% of all your questions on the science sections are going to be testing either skill 1 or skill 2, so either content or reasoning with that content. A slight majority of those questions will be skill 2 questions. So those are the bread and butter of the MCAT. Know your content and then practice with passages so you can work on applying that material. However, there is also skill 3 and skill 4 questions, about 10% for each. And skill 3 is reasoning about the design and execution of research. And the AMC states that this is demonstrating an understanding of important components of scientific research and reasoning about ethical issues in research. So essentially, you want to be able to understand a research type passage, and the best way to practice this is just doing lots of practice passages and working on understanding your basic statistics so you can extrapolate information from the passages that the AMC is given. And then also research ethics is becoming a much hotter topic that medical schools and clearly the AMC want you to be able to come in with some sort of understanding. So you need to know your basic research ethics. It's not a heavy focus, but you will see a couple of questions on the MCAT in regards to that. And then lastly, skill 4 question is data-based and statistical reasoning. So essentially what you're doing now is you are taking the information that you were able to interpret from the passage and apply it to draw your own conclusions and be able to reason through with new information that they're giving you. So the AMC states that skill 4 questions are interpreting patterns in data presented in tables, figures, and graphs, and then reasoning about data and drawing conclusions from them. So those are your 4 skills that you need to master to ace your MCAT, and that is exactly what I'm going to be showing you how to do throughout the rest of this course. And last but not least, we have the MCAT CARS skills. Now, since the CARS is a much different section from the other 3, those science sections, they have their own skills. The AMC has listed 3 skills that they want you to know, but I actually developed 2 more skills that I want all my students to be able to master. That's going to get them those extra points on the test. So first, let's talk about the 3 that are listed by the AMC. The first one is foundations of comprehension. So understanding the basic components of the text. Basically, can you read it and interpret what the author is trying to say, get the main idea, and answer some pretty straightforward questions that will be based off of the text. A skill 2 question for CARS is going to be reasoning within the text. So that's going to be integrating different components of the text to increase comprehension. So they might require you to take something you learned from one paragraph and something you learned from another and put it together in order to get your answer. And then a skill 3 question is reasoning beyond the text, and that is going to be applying or extrapolating ideas from the passage to new context, and also assessing the impact of introducing new factors, information, or conditions to ideas from the passage. So for skill 3 questions, AMC is going to present you with some sort of novel information that you've never seen before. It's not going to have anything to do with the passage, or it may, and you're going to have to use what you've learned from the passage by getting into the author's head, and we're going to talk about how to do that later on, and synthesize those 2 pieces of information in order to get to your answer. So these are the 3 MCAT CAR skills that the AMC wants you to know. So as you can see here, skill 4 and skill 5 are highlighted in red, and that's because they are not AMC skills, they are ATH Med Prep student skills. And a lot of students struggle with CARS. It's like I said before, one of the hardest sections on the MCAT, and usually gives students who have strong science backgrounds a difficult time. These 2 skills, if you can master them, you're going to have a lot better of a chance to do well on that CARS section. So the first, which I call skill 4, is properly using the text. So here we want to use different tactics to find where in the passage to go to answer each question. Now, a big mistake a lot of students make is they don't properly use the information they are presented with. A lot of students will read the passage and then try and remember a lot while answering the questions. This is not what you want to do. I repeat, you do not want to read the text and try to just memorize a lot of the information. A lot of times the answers are not as hard as you think, but they require going to a very specific portion of the text in order to find your answer. So what we're going to be talking about is how can you do that? What's a systematic approach to going into the text and finding the information you need to answer every single question? Also using the tone of answer choices when necessary, and using the text to figure out what the author's tone is will be helpful. We'll talk about this later. And then skill 5, last minute tactics, which, like I said here, only for ATH students. These are the tactics that I've developed that a lot of successful students can use to gain extra points at those last minutes when you're running out of time, or you've got to a hard question that you marked for later. So this is going to give you the ability to choose the right question, the right answer when you're down to 2. I know this is the common scenario. I'm down to 2, I narrowed it down, and I always choose the wrong one. We're going to talk about how you can avoid that and avoid trap answers. So stay tuned for more on the CARS section.